Dear listeners of WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, welcome to tonight's program. This is Innovation Unedited with another edition and a special guest. I am your host, Angelo Lampousis from the City College of New York, the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences. Our guest today is coming from the West Coast, from Palo Alto, California. He's the president and CEO, the founder and CEO of a very successful startup called Metanautix, and his name is Dr. Theo Vassilakis. Theo, welcome to our program.
Angelo, thanks for having me. Thank you, guys.
Theo is in town this week, attending various conferences, and in his busy schedule, he managed to fit a little bit of time for us. And may I remind everyone that we are in the presence of some very successful students. We call them honor students from the Macaulay Honors College, and they have, as always, their laptops from a particular company, as I can see, and they will blog questions as we develop our discussion. So if you would share a little bit, if you don't mind, from your own background first. I know you have an advanced degree in some science. Maybe you can share a little bit of that, and I will try and also follow up with some questions for our students and the public to get inspired by your own success, perhaps.
Thank you. Sure. I was happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. I'll just give you a little bit of my educational background, actually, just since we're at City College. So I actually started as an undergraduate in math. I was just very excited about mathematics. Did an undergraduate degree, and then continued to do PhD in mathematics because I felt like, math, it's a beautiful, pure thing. Had a lot of fun doing it, and actually also did some teaching, which I enjoyed, but I also learned is really, really hard. And it takes a special sort of dedicated person to kind of do that well. And so after I finished my degree, decided to go work for Microsoft. And since I had kind of a mathematical background, worked on speech recognition there. So some of the speech recognition models that you might use in Microsoft Windows and things like that were some of the early things I worked on. Then moved on to Microsoft Research, did some fun work with databases. And then, as it happened, Google opened up shop in Kirkland, Washington, which is where I was living. And that's kind of how the rest of my career happened, and eventually led to Metanautix, which I co-founded with an old friend from my Stanford days after Google.
Just to finish up the education cycle, I have run across your PhD thesis.
Okay.
And I don't feel bad about this because it's public domain, but it so happened that it was in a particular library, so I picked it up, I read it. I've noticed first that it was very short. Maybe it's a common thing, I don't know, for dissertations in math to be short. My own was larger, so I felt good about this. But when I opened yours, I think I survived the first page and a half, and then I was lost. So maybe you can comment a little bit of how perhaps it's different, a thesis in doctoral dissertation in math.
Yeah, so I think you guys probably know math can be pretty dense, and so you can kind of take a lot of information and put it in very few equations. And so I actually had a much longer thesis and kind of decided to take out all the introductory material, and I have it somewhere on a hard drive.
Maybe that's what I need.
But but we figured, you can sometimes take just the core results, and I think that very often, right, in a research setting, if you can distill just the new stuff, right, so that people can kind of dissociate that and really read the core, it's very helpful. So I do think there are two kinds of skills, good expository skills where somebody can take what is known and really present it well and succinctly so that people who are seeing it for the first time can kind of understand it. And then research skills, which are about kind of saying, here's a new way to combine things that maybe people haven't seen before. And so try to kind of separate those two parts and put only the new stuff in the dissertation. But thank you for picking that up.
I was honored. Let's come a little bit forward in time.
Sure.
And as a reminder, this is under the umbrella of a seminar called Seminar 3 on Science and Technology in New York City. And the students present in the green room today are attending this particular seminar. What we're trying to do through this program is introduce some ideas about science and technology through a specific lens, if you will. And in this case, we have been talking to specialists on innovation and entrepreneurship. It seems as if Silicon Valley is the mecca of entrepreneurship and innovation, and you're right there in between all of this. So I think it will be enlightening and inspiring, perhaps, to talk about your own efforts in your company called Metanautix. What are you guys after? And who are your clients? What are the issues? Anything you would like to share?
Sure. Yeah, happy to give you guys a few thoughts on that. So, firstly, I think obviously there are lots of different kinds of innovation, right? And in a way, some of the mathematics work from earlier in my career is also different kind of innovative research work where you try to take like a deep problem and really find techniques around it. I think what's going on in Silicon Valley is innovation of this type, but also of other types. So there's both technology innovation. So how do you do things with, let's say, systems that maybe people haven't been able to do before or been able to do at a certain price point? And also business innovation. How do you take that technology and give it to people in a way that they can actually consume it in a much more convenient fashion, right? So for us at Metanautix, right, the goal is to really take analytics, so systems and technology for people to take lots of data, maybe data from different data sources, such as databases or the web or other types of media, as well as big systems, maybe the computers that are on Amazon, like on Elastic Compute Cloud or perhaps on Google's cloud, and actually like put those things together to find new results from the data. And so one of the things we're doing at the company is to package that in a way that makes sense to kind of a more traditional enterprise. And so some of our customers are more traditional enterprises, such as HP, right? Been around for a long time, has lots of different parts, right? But also, more cutting-edge enterprises, or I should say newer enterprises, perhaps, such as Shutterfly. So, and a lot of that came actually from some of the lessons inside of Google and also Facebook, where my co-founder and CTO comes from. So, we were both at Google, at Facebook, saw certain ways that people were doing data analysis and thought, gee, this is really kind of a novel way of approaching data problems. What if more people had access to that? And we realized that the Google and Facebook environment's kind of special, and you can't necessarily generalize that to any company out there. And so the goal of Metanautix is to look at the problems of data analysis through a lens like Google and Facebook, but then build systems in a way that makes sense to more traditional enterprises that maybe have different skill sets inside. So that's, I hope, gives you a sense of the problem.
Yeah, that's a very good outline, and I'm intrigued by the extent in which your previous experience, yours in Google and your partners in Facebook, informed your own company. Because I know that you had served in high-level positions, managerial type positions in Google, with a large number of engineers working under you in a way. But I assume that you had a sense of belonging in Google, right? So how one transitions from that status and state to one that you have to make the decisions as a startup now, and the leader of this effort in going forward with your idea.
Yeah. I was at Google for 8 years, and so any place that you've been for a long time, it's hard to leave, right? And I know that many of you in the audience probably haven't been part of one organization for probably 8 years, maybe your school before this, but you do develop a set of ties, and those ties can make it hard to leave at some point. They also make you very effective in that organization. By the way, one thought I wanted to share with you guys is that I also felt when I was an undergraduate, a lot of people said to me, hey, some of the people that you meet here might have a really big impact in your life later. And I always thought that didn't make any sense to me. It's sort of, all the people here are great people, but we don't really share a lot of interests. And then 20 years later, a lot of the people at the company are actually people that I met during my undergraduate days, and old friends and people we worked with in different classes. And so I would encourage you guys to think about that and say, hey, maybe some people in this room will be people that you're working with in 20 years' time, even if you don't actually run into them for a long time in between. But so to try to answer your question, I think you can take experience from like a larger company such as Microsoft, where I was before. I think Microsoft was on the order of 100,000 people when I was there. And then a smaller company like Google, which was in the low thousands when I was there. And then combine it with experience, for example, from someone like Poli, my co-founder, who was primarily in startups. So he actually dropped out of the Stanford CS PhD program to start a company called Align Technologies. And if you guys have seen the Invisalign braces that some people wear, that are thin film braces that are 3D printed to fit your teeth. So Toli was a co-founder at this company, and then he kind of followed, startup after startup over the years. And so we sort of took those two backgrounds and put them together and said, hey, I've managed large organizations and he's been in many startups, and so together we feel like, we have the sort of experiences and background to kind of run a small company. So Metanautix is 25 people. I remember actually it being the size of, the audience in this room. And actually, if I count, at this size, we were still in my house. So everybody would come to my living room and, we'd work there, and then eventually, got that office in Palo Alto. But it is a very different experience because, at the end of the day, Google is a very fast-moving place and you make decisions quickly. But it is a larger company, and so there are structures that you have to follow. I think at Metanautix, at the stage like this, we would decide something on the spot and then we would just do it. So the cycle of decision making is really a lot shorter than you might find at even a very, very fast-paced company such as Google. So I think in terms of making decisions, you just have to have a clear vision of what you're doing. And if you had asked me 10 years ago, would you want to be running a high-tech startup today, I would have said, you understand nothing about me. It's not at all in my interests or in my direction. But after you find something that you're passionate about, and I'm passionate about, analyzing data, making it easy for people to find results out of it, and you kind of see how you might make a change for other people, then it actually becomes a lot easier to make these decisions because you have this picture in your mind that you're following.
Very good. I think it's a good time to start taking a few student questions. We have been talking with Theo Vassilakis, who is the founder and CEO of Metanautix, based in Palo Alto, California. Theo is visiting New York City in attendance of various conferences and meetings, and he found some time in his busy schedule to include us in the conversation. And our instructional technology fellow is Aaron Kendall, who is arranging all of the technical aspects of what you're seeing. And our host is Angela Harden, the general manager of WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. So we have one student volunteer, Sharon, who can help us with the student questions. Sharon, if you would.
Hi, Dr. Theo. I think the first question would be, what was your inspiration or motivating factor to leave a big company like Google and pursue a startup?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great question. It really was the feeling that in Silicon Valley you can create something quickly, and it really also was a sense of timing. A lot of things came together kind of very suddenly. Totally was ready to go. Investors, came through some of our network. The timing of the industry was right. We felt like some of the things that we had done in our previous jobs was really something that could benefit a wide stretch of the industry. And then lots of our friends and former colleagues said, we're ready to try it with you. And so when all of those things came together, it was more of a question of how can we not do it. So it was kind of an exciting moment.
Since I also want to know, how is your product different, from your competitors?
Sure. Yeah. No. I get this question all the time. So we build a product that is called a data compute engine, and so we call it a data compute engine as opposed to what people think of as a database engine. So in a database engine, you first put all the data in, okay, and then you get to run queries to ask questions of the data. And so the idea of a data compute engine is, hey, what if I didn't have to put the data in first, right? Like, you tell me where the data is. So you say the data is on that server over there, or the data is on that web page over here. And we go and directly read the data out of there and let you run queries immediately. And so this means that you don't have a big cycle of, oh, let me import stuff, maybe it'll take me a long time to do the import, and then I can, finally ask the questions that I have, right? So its intent is to really speed up and make it a lot easier to get answers out of the data sets you have.
Mm-hmm. And we wanted to know, what growth do you expect from Metanautix, and how do you see it evolving in the future?
Sure. So, Metanautix is now about 25 people, as I think I mentioned. We're about 2 years old. We came out of stealth, I would say, in August. So stealth is a period of time when a company is developing the product and isn't really talking about it broadly. And so, starting in August, we said, hey, the company is here. We're ready to talk about the product. And we launched the actual product at a conference called the Tableau Conference. Tableau is a different software company that makes a very attractive visual analytics product. And so we sort of became partners with them and went to their conference to launch the product about 3 weeks ago. So pretty new. The next goal for us is really to kind of go to more conferences like Strata and Hadoop Summit this week, and more places, so that we can educate the market about what we've made, how it's different, and then grow our user base and grow the number of scenarios that the system is applied in. So those are the next steps.
Mm-hmm. And in layman's terms, how would you explain big data and how it's used?
Sure. Yeah. No. It's a very commonly used phrase now. So, I think that to me, big data is the set of technologies and data that have developed over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, that really can capture physical measurements about what is happening in the real world much more finely than it could be done, let's say 20 years ago, right? So when not everyone had a mobile device in their pocket that could actually trace all the places that they've gone, or when a lot of things happen much more in the physical world and not through a web browser where all of the interactions could be captured, or where sensors weren't attached to quite so many things in the physical world. A lot of interactions just didn't leave a digital trace, right? And so to me, big data is the digital trace of what happens in the physical world, and lots of those little events by themselves don't necessarily help you that much, meaning one GPS coordinate of, this person was there, or that item was there for a moment, isn't maybe that helpful. But when you put it together, you can get a much better picture of what's happening out there, and therefore make a lot better decisions and have much better understanding of what's going on in scientific and business and lots of different kinds of contexts. So,
I think we have time for one question, one more question.
As an innovator in your field, what do you think the world really needs right now? What do you hope to see?
I think better transparency of what is happening just lets people make informed decisions, right? So when people don't know what's going on and don't have facts, then they make decisions either on intuition or bias or a number of other factors. But when you actually have hard information and objective information, then generally people do the right thing, right? So I think putting those tools and the facts in people's hands is probably what we need the most, at least in my opinion. So, and big data is going to help with that. So,
we have been talking to Theo Vassilakis, founder and CEO of Metanautix, out of Palo Alto in California. We thank, first of all our students who participated today, our Instructional Technology Fellow who made this possible, our host, Radio WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, and above all, we thank our guest, Theo Vassilakis, for being with us today. Theo, thank you so much.
Angelo, thanks for having me. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot.
Until next time, goodbye.